Today we're playing with alcohol ink basics. Today it's all about the brushes. Hang on tight. Let's see what these brushes can do to alcohol ink. Howdy, howdy everyone. So I thought I would break down some basic techniques of alcohol ink. And I thought I would start with how I manipulate it with paintbrushes. So, I'm putting on my trusty gloves because, you know, we are messing with alcohol ink and, you know, I don't want purple fingers today. Anyway, so I've got Tim Holtz colors. I'll put the colors at the end of the video or at least I try to do on a regular basis. A couple times I've missed, but I try to do that. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this particular color here, which is a pretty dark color, and I'm going to put a couple drops onto a paper plate that I'm going to be using and manipulating later. So I'm just going to have that ready to go. And that's one way of adding color to a piece already. So that's going to be ready. Anyway, so what I thought I would do right now is just to get started, I'm going to apply some red. This is a cranberry. Let's see, on camera, there we go, cranberry. And then the other color here is butterscotch. So I'm going to apply some color right now, get it on there, and then start manipulating from there. So, oh, and I've also got on hand just a couple cups, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's just a little bit of alcohol, just enough to kind of get the paintbrushes wet and start moving some solutions down. So let's see, how should we do this first? I always kind of play loosely, so sorry. All right. So I'm working in a really well ventilated area. My ceilings are quite tall. But if you're not, please make sure, this alcohol, this is 91% isopropyl alcohol. And it's really strong. It's not good for you to breathe. And need to take the proper precautions of masks and stuff. So, but if you're in a well ventilated area, it will distribute pretty well. All right, so I'm just going to apply some color down for now. Just to get something to start with. Right. Sometimes I'll move this stuff around with my fingers like this just to get the color to go over in more of the area. So, there's a couple different ways of working with alcohol ink and brushes. When you're messing with alcohol on top of a color, you can either move the color around by applying more alcohol. You can remove the color. In other words, say if this area is too dark and I want it lighter, I can simply dab in some alcohol manipulate my brush, wipe it off on the off something else, clean off your brush, dab a little bit more, do kind of repeat until you get the lightness that you want. So that's one way of doing it. The other one is, say I want to have a swirl or some kind of movement around. I'll dip my brush in alcohol and manipulate it from there. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. I would recommend just getting in there and get some pieces of paper, whether they're small or large, and just start playing with it. Don't go into a big important piece right off the bat if you're not comfortable with diving in and feeling dangerous. Test it out, get used to the material and the medium. So I'm gonna dip my color in the alcohol right now, and I'm gonna see if I can try and lighten up some color here. Do that with a gun. You see, that's one way to lighten up a piece right there, by just adding a little bit of alcohol onto your brush. So what I'm doing now is I'm literally dipping my brush into the alcohol and rubbing it off on the cloth to try to get some of the alcohol ink off of it. Okay, so let's see. Dipping it in alcohol, and I'm gonna just do some swirls here, or brush strokes. And you can use it because I've always got a little bit of alcohol on here, and even though I'm not re-dipping, it can help soften the edges a little bit more. All right, do a little bit more than that. So I'm running low. If you don't like an area, just keep working it. That's kind of how you can work that out, right there. Let's see. Let's see if I can get the gold to move over into here. So this one was just kind of a removal or moving around the red on the paper itself. The color gold is pretty much over in this area. The color red is pretty much in this area. So I'm going to try and move the gold over into here. So again, get my hand, my ink, or get my brush wet with some alcohol and grab some gold and come over. Now these are just showing you different techniques as far as that I use. And you can see how the gold is moving into this area right in here. I guess I need to see if my hand is covering. Yep, it's covering up everything I'm doing. Great. All right, let me try from this direction. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to move the gold over into here. Pick up a little bit more gold. A little bit more alcohol. And see how that's nicely blended? It's actually picking up some of the red from me doing several swipes. So that's one way of getting some color back and forth, or a blending kind of an action there. Let's see. I'm going to try that removal one more time in case I did cover that up completely. So let me do this. So I'm just trying to remove color for right now is what I'm trying to do. I don't know if my hand was in the way and you couldn't see it. So if you see, I'm rubbing it on, And I'm coming over here and rubbing off the brush on the paper. And it gets back down to a whiter color. Or the paper color, I should say. Okay. So let's see now. Oh, we can do this. I'm gonna take my little palette here. My dirty palette. Okay. And I'm gonna add a little bit of this butterscotch straight on. And I'm not gonna add any alcohol. I'm just gonna dip, let's see. Let me shift things. I don't know, this will work better actually. Hang on. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna dip my brush straight into here. I've got no alcohol except for that little bit that's remaining. And I'm gonna apply it straight on here. That's one way of getting a nice blending and applying more color and not diluting it. So you're adding to it. All right, let me clean my brush a little bit. All right, I'm gonna do some red also. So you can see the red going onto the golden area. Or the butterscotch. All right. Now I could keep on moving it without redipping if I wanted to. And I would start picking up some of the yellow each time I swiped. And so each stroke wouldn't be like that pure red. It would start to get a little bit of the butterscotch in there. If I wanted only pure red, I go back to it each time. You see how those strokes look really, really red, whereas these are picking up some of the gold and blending it together, giving more of a browner tone or a muted tone. So that's one way to keep your color a little bit more pure, is to go back in and redip as you're swiping. And you notice how this color here has been here for a little bit? You can reactivate it by adding a little bit of alcohol to your brush and going into here and look, wake it up. And now you got another color to play around with. See? I like reintroducing the reds because I end up with a better color in the end. Looks a little better as far as natural. Okay, so it's not uncommon for me to try to darken up an area, adding shadow or details and such. So you remember this darker, what do they call it? Auburn, I believe? Aubergine from Copic, and that's on here. And this is pretty dry. If I run my brush through it, it's kind of thickened up. It almost feels tarry-like. Look at that color. It's kind of a wineish burgundy color. It's really pretty. What I'm gonna do is get my brush wet, put a couple drops on here, swirl it around a little bit, and move my brush around on it. I'm kind of waking that ink up a little bit. So now it's ready to play. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I've got a lot of color on this brush right now, and it's really dark. So if I apply it, I'm going to get a pretty dark tone. Now, I'm going to do it a couple more times so that you see. That's a lot of color. But what if I want just a little bit of the dark? So I'm going to try and clean off my brush. Now you see why I got 2 cups around, because sometimes the ink will get or the alcohol will get a little bit too dark. And that way you can keep the process going. Okay. So I've got a lot of alcohol on my brush right now, and I'm just gonna barely pick up a little bit of this. See how there's just not much on my brush? Let's see. I'm trying to do this from further away. So I want to give this a little bit of a shadow. And you can manipulate it that way and adding some darkness to it, just a little bit. Right, let me get my brush a little bit wet, pick up a little bit more of that aubergine, just a little bit. Those darker tones can really go far. Let's see. This almost has a three-dimensional look to it, so I'm gonna mess around with this a little bit. Okay, that didn't do exactly how I wanted it to do. Sometimes that can happen. What I did there is I picked up a little bit more of that color. So it gives it a little bit of dimension, makes this guy pop out a little bit by adding a dark hue to the side of it. Gives it that effect of popping forward. Same thing with this guy here. So there's some ways you can work around your brush. Let me get a fresh one. And I'm gonna get a fresh this. And the other way you can do it, this is a really thin brush. It's actually a liner brush for hobby. Painting models and stuff or doing line work. And I'm going to dip it into the alcohol ink and just apply teeny tiny little, okay, I had a lot more alcohol ink than I expected. So you can also dip your brush onto your paper towel to remove some of the ink. Now if I were working on a nice piece, I would be mindful about how much alcohol ink is on here, but since I'm just kind of doing a play piece, I'm not that worried about it. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, see. So you can see this. Let me dip it one more time. All right, I'm gonna touch the paper and let's see. Bring this over there. We'll work in this area. Okay, so I've got a tiny bit on my brush. I can just barely touch it. And don't make me a liar, alcohol ink. I think you are. Did my brush dry? Might have. Okay, try this again. Oh, there we go. Alcohol will evaporate pretty quickly. So like you saw there, just me talking and trying to get in the right position was enough for it to evaporate off your brush. You can also get some really nice line work done too. There is not enough alcohol on that to show up. All right, let's try this again. So by removing ink with a thin brush, you can create swirls, create little flowers. by starting with the base and then just manipulating it from there. And if you don't have enough removed, just apply it over it. And build it up until you're happy. And if you don't like that and you want to add some more yellow, I can go back to my little trusty palette here. Remember that had some yellow on it? Get it a little bit wet. Pick up some of that yellow, add it to the middle. Ta-da! All right, wake up my red. Trying to do this with my hand out of the way so that you can still see it in the camera. It makes it for tricky hand positioning. And this is just a simple flower thing, so definitely wouldn't win any awards. But that's basically the techniques I use for working with paintbrushes on alcohol. So give this a try, and I'm going to bring you guys in for a close-up just so you can see what the details look like. Now, this is not, you know, an amazing piece of artwork by any means, but you can see the effects and what they look like with the brush. And you can get some smooth blends in there. Let's see how that works out there. That's the area there that I was removing the ink from, just simple dots. Moving colors around. That's playing with just the alcohol in the red only. So that's just diluting the red, moving that around. This is the color of moving the yellow into the red. And you see how working some really pretty blends in there. Introducing yellow over here in the red. And then this is introducing the red into the yellow. And you see how this is a nice pure red over here? And then this area here has the golden tones blended into the red, so they kind of warm it up a bit. So have some fun with your brushes and alcohol ink. Don't be afraid to play. Who knows? Might be a flower in your future. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, but more importantly, hit the bell to get notified next time I put a video up.